Okay, part 7 of my notes from this wonderful book, Empire of Normality by Robert Chapman. So I'm just going to do 3 more. And so he was talking about the history of the neurodiversity movement and the community, which arose from online activity when autistics found connecting easier online than in person. Harvey Bloom said autistics are neither willing nor able to give up their own customs. Instead, they are proposing a new social compact, one emphasizing neurological pluralism. So rather than giving in to pressure to act more normally, they were resisting this, and in doing so pushing back against the idea that autism itself was in need of fixing. This caught the attention of Judith Singer in 1997. She was interested in the politics of disability. By the time she'd read Bloom's article, she'd already identified as being on the autism spectrum, as her own life mirrored those of many autistic people, and had already joined various online autistic groups. She'd already begun thinking about autism through the sociological lens of disability studies, which framed disablement as a societal more than an individual problem. She related most to the neurological pluralism and refusal to give up autistic customs in a neurotypical world. Her own emerging understanding of autistic resistance was grounded in her experience of being part of the Jewish diaspora, that is, of being part of a group of outsiders who refused to assimilate and therefore paid the price. She was the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and it was her heritage and experience as part of a diaspora that made her relate strongly to this new politics of pluralism. She called for a politics of neurodiversity in 1999 and helped the pioneering community of autistic activists spark the rise of the neurodiversity movement across the globe. She envisaged a new civil rights movement that could lead to the development of what she called an ecological society. For Singer, this society would view neurodiversity in the way conservationists view biodiversity, including making policy and practices more inclusive. It would be at odds with the dominant way of organising society, which segregated disabled people and routinely placed great pressures on autistics to become more normal. In the mid-1970s, Paul Hunt and Finkelstein, Marxist disability activists, formed the Union of Physically Impaired Against Segregation, UPAS, and came to see their disablement as the product of material social factors rather than the problem with the body. Material conditions and societal structures and practices impose disablement on people with physical impairment. They acknowledged that the impairment was real and part of the body, but refused to see disability as an individual tragedy, but rather one of marginalisation and oppression, not simply an individual medical matter. Other radical groups were developing similar insights around the same time regarding the social model of disability. These groups saw disabled liberation bound up with collective liberation, e.g. in the late 1970s, the Black Panthers supporting radical disability activism. There's a lot more about this in the book, by the way. The social model and disabled persons movement mainly focused on physical disability for the first few decades. The movement was able to make significant gains in legal and social recognition and in removing disabling barriers and challenging segregation. Jim Sinclair, 1993, claimed that the tragedy of autism occurred not because of who we are, but because of the things that happened to us in a world that failed to accommodate autistic modes of processing and communication. Autistic activists argued that many problems in learning and understanding were down to sensory environments not accommodating autistic sensory processing styles. If physical structure, assumptions, expectations and norms changed, much autistic disablement would be eased. They argued that different minds could be seen as having different specialisation and that divergent minds were not necessarily deficient. So I've broken it, I've got another section with more about neurodiversity, which I'll talk about next time, and then the final section. But it's all sort of really interesting getting onto this now and seeing, you know, the context and how neurodiversity, the coining of, and the activism and everything else arose. So that's all for now. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, your views very welcome. I am just the vehicle at the moment for, I know in other ones I've said my own views where it's triggered, but this was mainly from reading directly from the book, but it just helps consolidate it in my mind because it resonates with me a lot, and I hope it will you.